Hello, YouTube. We'll be starting in about 10-15 minutes. the service on?
It looks like one of the very small kids. It's you. Hello, Michael. Don't be personal.
Shabbat Shalom, Pam. Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi. Shabbat Shalom, Natalie.
It's good seeing you.
This will be Michael's second service with us this week, or with me at least. That was the service is usually more attended, Michael. I think COVID kept people away.
You know, I thought considering that COVID was going on, the attendance wasn't all that bad considering COVID, that it was an indoor event. You know, I thought it was actually not too bad.
Well, if you took away the kids singing in the Muslim chorus, it was much smaller.
That's true, yeah.
That was the entire three back rows sitting next to you. So I said to Pam, Marvin, Susan, Lehman were going to be coming to services tonight because Susan's sister died. Susan's brother died. But I haven't seen him. And also Claire said that she was going to try and be on services today. Yes. My head's cut off. It's because you weren't here to fix it.
You need someone to obsess over visual details. In girls' school, every semester we have to present a platform. We have a theme. I make it worse. I would spend. Sometimes I felt that maybe I spent more time putting together the program that will look pretty, but I did not want to use it.
Visuals though are awfully important. I've learned that, you know, this AT&T. If you're not doing it, you know, you can do it with crayon, it was all content, all
Yeah.
ideas. But for a lot of the guys, it's how professional looking the presentation was, whether you had cartoons and movies, and visuals and all, that's what they value. It's one of those things that lets you know you're a fine culture.
Neshama. There's
Shabbat shalom, neshama.
Shabbat shalom. Good to see you.
All right, try again, Pam. Pam, I have the mic facing you now. You can say Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom all.
Oh, neshama, they're not able to do Zoom for the poetry group.
Oh, well, thanks for investigating for me.
Yeah, I
Michael.
forgot. I keep forgetting to get back to you, but
That's all right.
they just don't have it
appreciate
set up. They don't have the technical stuff set up to do it so you could hear and stuff like that.
Okay.
All right, Shabbat shalom, everybody. I'm going to be leading music in the service because the cantor's working on making sure that Pam sees everybody straight while she's looking at the screen.
I'm the audience tonight.
Natalie and Claire, you're welcome to unmute yourselves and say Shabbat shalom. Hello, Claire.
Shabbat shalom all. It's good to be with
Oh.
you.
Claire, wonderful to see you, dear.
It's wonderful to see you and to be here.
Yeah.
Shabbat shalom, Claire.
Shabbat shalom, Michael. This is wonderful. This is wonderful.
All right, so now that we said Shabbat shalom to each other, I'm going to mute everyone. And then we will continue together. There we go.
Pam,
And
would you like page numbers or will you just use the screen?
I'll use the screen.
you want to sing something other than that?
No.
Okay. We'll begin by carrying where we left off, saying how nice it is to be together. For those of you here in the sanctuary, we have an experiment for after the service. Kent and I realized that if you are here and looking at that screen to read, it is a bit small. So we're playing around with some bigger layouts, which we'll show you afterwards and get your opinion on. But it is good to be here together, good as well to, when we come together for joy or to be with our community and sharing our sadness. It's good to be able to gather together. So I'd like to invite up, because we're happy to see them back among us in person, the Lidskis to light our candles for us.
Shalom, everybody. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech olam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
There you go. Why don't you come down this side?
Good idea.
The wire around the wire. Yes.
Just gonna slap each other up here.
That's our version of the high five. A respectful elbow bump. All right, so now we're welcome Shabbat. We now welcome Shabbat as if we were at a wedding, singing Lecha Dodi, and when we get to the last verse, we'll rise, as seems to be the American custom, as we welcome the bride and groom to the chuppah.
We're in the songbook on page 5. Kala
welcome Shabbat together. We are ready to continue with our worship, the Baruch Hu. You can at home rise and face the east or the arc on the screen as we continue. If you're in your prayer book, it's a page 146. That's the numbers in the blue brackets.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Hermans, would you like to read this page for us? First, you got to unmute yourselves. Hermans, you want to read this for us? I don't think they can hear us. Brad? Hermans? Okay, that's a no. All right, Natalie, would you read this for us? Unmute, there you go.
Adonai, your majesty is proclaimed by the marvels of earth and sky. Sun, moon, and stars testify to your power and wisdom. Day follows day in endless succession, and the years vanish, but your sovereignty endures. Though all things pass, let not your glory depart from us. Help us to become co-workers with you and endow our fleeting days with abiding worth. Blessed are you who makes evening fall.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
Please be seated. Continue with the Via Havta, which you can find in your prayer books on page 154 or on the screen.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol lebavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, v'shivtecha b'beitecha, u'v'lechtecha b'derech, u'v'shokbecha u'chumecha, u'kshartam le'ot ayadecha, v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha, u'chtavtam Amezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru vasitem et kol mitzvotai vitem kadoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem Me'eretz Mitzrayim, lichot lachem Elohim, ani Adonai Elohechem.
Continue with the Mi Kamocha, which you can find in your prayer books on page 158.
La
Michael. Michael, would you read this?
Page 160.
Okay, thank you, Rabbi. Hashkivenu, grant, O God, that we lie down in peace and raise us up, our guardian, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel. For your name's sake, be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our coming and going, our going and coming, to life and to peace evermore.
Page 162.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם לעולם, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש.
As we continue now with the tefillah, which you can find in your prayer books on page 164, you remember that we are now past the dry season and the rainy season in Israel. So when we get to the Gevurot, we have changed from praising God, the bringer of dew, to God who turns the wind and brings the rain. Please rise. You can face the ark or the east if you are at home.
Adonai sefatai tivtach ufiyagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu v'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'hanora El Elyon Gomer chasadim tovim Lekonei hakol Vezocher chaster avot v'imahot Umevii gula livnei bneihem Leman shemo be'ahava Melech ozer Moshio Mageh Baruch atah Adonai Magin Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah Atah gibor le'olam Adonai Michayei hachol atah Rav Hoshia Mashiv haruach u'morih hagashem Mechakel chayim bechesed Mechayeh hakol berachamim rabim Somech noflim verofeh cholim Umatir asurim Umekayem emunato Li משני עפר, מחמוך בעל גבורות, ומדום מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום, יהללוך סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
Please be seated. Let's take a moment now that we have gathered together for Shabbat to take a deep breath, appreciate the moment that we have reached. Some of us, I had a conversation today, it was very difficult to get through the high holidays. And then there's all sorts of stuff that happens after it. Some of us have had sad things happen in our beginning of our year. Some have dealt with illness, but we are all together in this moment. Whatever place we are, finding strength from each other. Let us take a moment for a deep breath. Breathe in the peace and rest of Shabbat, community around us. Take a moment to enjoy Shabbat.
Page 178.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech hador lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech hador lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov b'necha levarech et Amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Baruch atah Adonai, hamvarich et amo Yisrael b'shalom.
Once we have experienced that moment of peace, it gives us a chance to think about where we are, what we have that we give thanks for, what it is that we need. We take a moment now for Tfilat Halev, the prayer of our hearts.
Say shalom bimrama, oh yeah, say shalom aleinu, ve'al Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Oh say shalom bimrama. Oh, yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
Take a moment to speak briefly about our Torah portion this week. Before we do that Torah study, we'll say the blessing together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. So first of all, I want to thank all of you for sitting in that section of the congregation right over there, because the camera is right over your head, so I can look at you and still be looking at everybody on the screen at the same time. We this week, we had Simchat Torah only a short, not quite 2 weeks ago, and so we are in the second parsha of the Torah, Parshat Noah, a story which everyone knows pretty well. And Michael, I apologize, you've already heard part of this sermon earlier in the week. Earlier this week, the annual Union County Interfaith Coordinating Council held its interfaith service at the Trinity Church, the Catholic Church in Westfield. And of the many pastors who spoke, one was the pastor who's the interim down at Willow Grove Church down by the way, and she started off actually by talking about Noah, which was quite fortuitous. I don't know if she knew it was the portion or not. And she talked about how this difficult time, we often think of things like Noah, and we imagine that we are Noah at the end of the journey, when Noah sends out the dove and it comes back with an olive branch in its hand, and they know that the waters are receding. I was going to speak about Noah, but in a different way. So the theme of the service was unity, coming together as a group, but the other piece is the UCICC is chartered by CAU, Community Access Unlimited, which is an organization not-for-profit organization in Union County, which works in Union County and the surrounding areas to lobby for, to represent, to provide work and help and support for people who are differently abled, whether it's physically or intellectually, whatever, that is their role. And so there's been some changes there. And so there's been a re-emphasis in the UCICC of that mission. And so the director of public engagement got up and talked about, it's often that when we think about discrimination based on gender, we think about discrimination based on sexuality, based on race or color of skin. But we often forget that some of those who are most abused even are those who are differently abled. And often it is compounded if they are of one of those other categories as well. And so I was speaking with Reverend Carmen Pernini, who is a Lutheran pastor in Rahway, who works with the group, and he said, they used to do this service where they would bring together all of the clients of CAU, and different pastors would come in and lead a service for them on a Saturday once a month, which was nice, but wasn't really making them feel welcome in the community. It made them feel as if they had to worship in a separate way. And they didn't have any home congregation. They did with the people, but they had a different pastor or clergy person speaking to them every month. At the same time, I was in conversation with my eldest child, who was working at a congregation in White Plains and is in charge of teaching the 7th graders their mitzvah program. And like us, the congregation for many years had the practice of requiring each of its students to do a mitzvah project, right? To find something in the world that needed to be fixed, to go out and do that project. But the now rabbi of the congregation, who was the rabbi educator, went to a conference and spoke to someone who said, you know, the problem with that is her son happened to be on the autistic spectrum. And someone came and did a mitzvah project where they all played basketball with these kids who are in this program for children on the autistic spectrum. And they had a great time. It was wonderful and fun. And then the kid finished his mitzvah project, so he went back home. But the poor children in the program thought, oh, isn't this nice? We now have a basketball program, and here are these nice new friends that we've made. Isn't this great? But those children were gone and didn't come back. So they actually have stopped doing mitzvah programs in terms of getting children more familiar and engaged with other things. I don't know that I go that far, but the point of it is, what do we do as a congregation to bring people who are differently abled and make them feel comfortable here? And the criticism we get, it's more than just providing a ramp, which says that if you have difficulty walking or you can't come up a step, you can come onto the bima. But what is it that we don't do? Why is it that we don't provide closed captions for our service, since we're now doing online? Why is it we don't provide interpreters for those who can't hear? And that's something which is near and dear to our cantor. That was her cantorial thesis, was how to provide engaging worship and music for those who cannot hear or cannot hear as well. How do we do that? How do we bring people in? How do we make them feel welcome here? Not going to them where they are. How do we make them feel welcome here? And so after the previous pastor had given a lovely talk about Noah and hope, I talked about some of the challenges of Noah in the Jewish tradition. Noah, you remember, was called an Ish Tam B'Doroto. He was a good man, a righteous man in his generation. And the rabbis interpret this in two ways, right? So what was Noah's generation? Pretty much the worst on earth up until that point. So bad that God decides what needs to be done is that all of people need to be destroyed. And Noah's the only one, Noah and his family, the only ones who can survive, and they will restart creation and humanity again. So for Noah to be a righteous person in his generation, one set of rabbis said, well, that's incredible. You know, we know it's much more difficult to be, you'll hear from this from Ben Silverman at the portion of Pirkei Avot that he has chosen for his study text next week. But sometimes it's much more difficult to be good when you have an environment of people doing bad around you. We know all the times we've dealt with children, others is, well, everybody else is doing it. And of course, the tried and true response to that is, if everybody else was drowning in the flood, would you go out and drown in the flood too? No, jump off a bridge. So the question is, so is Noah really, is much more righteous because he's able to be righteous in that generation? But another group of rabbis comes along and says, no, actually, Noah was just relatively righteous. Everybody was pretty bad, but Noah was the best of a bad bunch. And how do we know that? Because they compare Noah to Abraham. What is the difference? Noah is surrounded by all of these neighbors. God says God's going to destroy the earth and kill everybody off. And Noah says, okay. Doesn't argue with God, doesn't say, why would you do that? None of that, just goes and builds the ark to save himself and his family. Whereas Abraham, several generations later, when God says, I can't hide what I'm going to do from Abraham because Abraham's going to be carrying this covenant and this relationship, says, over there in Sodom and Gomorrah, we're going to go over there and destroy them because they're really bad. And Abraham, other than his nephew, really has no interest in Sodom and Gomorrah. It's not his people, it's not his relatives. And he says, God, you can't do that. You're the judge of the earth. That's not doing justice, and argues with God, not just once. God, if there are 50 people in that city, I'm writing my sermon for next week, right? If there are 50 people in the city, will you not save the city for those 50 righteous people? And God says, okay, 50. And then Abraham says, well, if those 50 lack 5, would you save for 45? And finally goes down to 10. And God says, okay, for 10, but that's it. And Abraham stops arguing. And of course, the sad part of the story is, at least according to God, 10 people are not found who are righteous in the city, and the city is destroyed, except for Lot and his daughters who escape. But the argument the rabbis make is we can't be like Noah and just be acquiescent to what's going on around us. We need to stand up and argue, even if it's a fruitless argument. We need to stand up and fight for others who we may think of as different, who we may think of as other. So that's what we brought up on Wednesday night at the service, which is it's not good enough to say over there they're okay having their service. The question is, how do we make people feel welcome and not say them and say us? How do we realize the great depth and variety of our community that doesn't always look like the people in the room? And I kind of concluded by saying the people who are welcome in our sanctuary are welcome in our sanctuary. And the people who are not welcome in our sanctuary are not welcome in our sanctuary. And what is it that we can do who feel comfortable to make others feel comfortable here as well? And so let us keep in mind that when we look to the Torah, as we begin it once again, there are good examples that we can follow, and there are examples that challenge us to do better. Speaking of doing better, it is a moment for us to think of those in our community, those around us who are in need of healing. We'll take a moment together to sing Debbie Friedman's Misha Barak for healing. We'll pause in the middle to remember by name those we wish to be remembered for healing, and then continue together.
You can find the words on page 371.
371. For healing, Ben Lavoy, Sandra Kahn, Howard Faust, Edie Delos, Suzanne Hastings. Is there anyone at home would like to add? Please unmute yourself.
Neil Schiff.
Bert and Adrian Kolinsky, Rhonda J. Halbin, and Cassie Greeley.
Now, if there's anyone in the congregation would like to add.
Jennifer Schuler. You can't believe it's
Mekor habracha
Continue now with the Alenu, which you can find in your prayer books on page 586. Please rise.
Alenu Shabbat Ladon Hakol, Latit Gdula Yotzer Bereshit, Shelo Asanu Klei Haratzot, Velo Samanu, V'mishpechot Ha'adama, Shelo Sam Chelkeinu Kahem, V'goralenu, V'chol Hamonam, Anafnu Korim, Umishtachavim Umodim, Lifnei Melech, Malchei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Page 591. V'nemar v'chaya Adonai, lemelech HaKol haaretz, Bayom hahu, yihi Adonai echad, u'shemo echad.
Please be seated. Take a moment now in our service, as we do each time we come together for worship. Remember those who are no longer with us, those who have passed on, live on in our memories. Take a moment before the mourner's Kaddish to remember those who are in the period of Shloshim, 30 days past their death, and those whose yahrzeit occurs on the Shabbat. And then we have some sad news to share after our Kaddish of people who have passed in the recent few days and will be buried in the next. As we come to the name of someone that you are here to remember, we ask you to, if you're at home, unmute yourself and rise, or here you can rise and just share with us a brief word or two about them so we can remember them with you. In the period of Shloshim, we have Jerry Grunfest, the father of Leslie Grunfest, and Barbara Garcia, the sister of Marion Portnoy. For those whose yahrzeit occurs on the Shabbat, Emmanuel Altman, Miriam Blitzstein, Bernice Brownstein, Leah Bussell, Ann Campbell, Emma Danziger, Lillian Epstein, Paula Judy Fellmeister, Irene Fielder, Helen Fear, Gerald Gelati, Eileen Gilman, Lena Glass, Philip Hackman, Edward R. Hoffman, Rosanna Cummins, Samuel Kaufman, E. Harold Levy, Bernard Lipman, Samuel Nadell, Nathan Schwartz.
Nathan was my very beloved father. He only lived to the age of 64, but he sure made the most of those years. He was very poor, and he worked his way through U of P, University of Pennsylvania, graduating from Wharton. With the backing of my grandfather, he started Taylor Lock Manufacturing Company, which grew and grew and grew. And he was just a beautiful, beautiful person. And I feel blessed to have had him as my father.
Ida Silverman. David St. Leifer. Arthur Tenenbaum. Blanche Weinstein. Are there any names that anyone would like to add?
Sadie Resnick was my maternal grandmother. And if the word Balabuster was in the dictionary, her name would certainly be next to it. She cooked, she baked, she sewed. We all had matching dresses and coats. Unfortunately, she couldn't make pants. And whenever we would go home and get our goodie bags, we would always make sure that everyone had the same amount and that nobody got 2 more Rugala or 2 more Zwieback than the next care package.
And I'd like to remember Judy Feldmeister, who became one of my friends in the temple. I'm guessing it's about probably like at least 8 years since she passed away, at least 7 or 8 years, if not longer. She was a good friend of mine. She would really make me feel very special, very encouraging to me. Kind of like a mother would be, or a grandmother, since she was older than me. And she really, when I spoke to her on the phone, she really would really instill confidence in me, and in a good sense of humor too, in a very upbeat way. So I will miss Judy. I do miss Judy.
In their memory, the memory of all those in our hearts, all those who have no one to say the Kaddish for them, we rise as a congregation to recite the Kaddish Yatom. V'kadal v'kadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divarach hirute v'yomlich malchute, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, v'agala u'bizman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mevorach le'olam olamei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudsha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechamata. Damiran b'ilma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min Shemaya. V'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. V'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. V'al kol yoshvei tevel. V'imru amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru amen.
We also recall those who have passed in the last week. David Goldman, brother of Susan Lehman, who will be buried on Sunday. Want to say anything about your brother?
Children, we fought like cats and dogs. As an adult, he's probably get me to scream. Special person.
Died yesterday evening, Joe Urso, husband of Nikki Leitner, father of Kim Leitner. Kim, did you want to say something about your father?
Yes, Rabbi. I just wanted to say that my father was a very kind man. He had a good heart, a great husband, a wonderful father and grandfather. And he was selfless for many, many, many years. He volunteered at both the Westfield and Scotch Plains Rescue Squad, and just really was an asset to the community and will be greatly missed. Thank you.
May the source of peace and peace to those who mourn. Give us the strength to comfort those who are bereaved. And we say, Amen. Please be seated. Now we invite up Pam Brander, our president, to share the announcements with us. Be seated. To share the announcements with us this Shabbat.
Okay, Shalom Shabbat, everyone. I'm just really happy to see everyone here. I guess the first thing on the list is this is a meatloaf month. So you can provide homemade meatloaves, bring them in the Tuesday before the Friday at the end of the month, or you'll be able to purchase meatloaves through the temple. Just keep an eye out for our advertisement in the Flame. Now, this Sunday, we're going to be having a new member brunch. Then the following week, October 15th and 16th, will be the services for Ben Silverman's bar mitzvah. Looking forward to that. It will be here. Members of the congregation are invited to services. We're going to have a play and pray service on the 23rd. And then on the 29th and 30th, we'll have the bat mitzvah for Sydney Klein, right? So that will be exciting. Ben Silverman's is next week, yes. So last Friday of the month, we'll be having a nosh. We'll be serving food outside on the patio. And there'll be a congregational Havdalah service on October the 16th. We're planning this will be after the family track service. Will be very nice. We'll do it around the fire pit. So we'll have some warmth and light and perhaps some food. Temple Shalom Takeout is now available. We're starting that up again, and that is on the 22nd. So keep an eye out for the Flame and for emails that will show you how to order for that service. You'll have to order by Tuesday prior to the 22nd. So that's about it. Rabbi, you'll be doing your service at the end of the month, your luncheon at the end of the month, right? Lunch with a rabbi. And Cantor, you'll be continuing with your Wednesday meditation, morning meditation services. So, any additions? Feel free.
Just a note for some people who have been fans of the Cantor's midweek meditation, it has moved to Thursdays and is now the morning meditation. So still at 9:30, but on Thursdays rather than Wednesdays. All right. What do we got for a closing song?
We're on page 635, at the bottom of the page. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat
To bring us together as a community, it is good for us to be here, whether in person, on screen, or in person in our sanctuary. As a community, we are strengthened by being together. It is a lesson that we learned, the bigger we make our community, the deeper we make our community, the more it strengthens us. For the strength, for the power, for the fortitude to continue to increase and deepen our community, we ask for your blessing.
Yevarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha.
May God bless you and keep you.
Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuleka.
May the light of God shine for you and be gracious to you.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha ve'asem lecha shalom. Shalom.
May God turn God's face to you, give you a blessing of wholeness and peace.
Amen.
Amen. Shabbat shalom. If everybody at home wants to get out their wine cups, we can't drink here in the sanctuary, so we're going to do that outside when we're done. But for those of you at home, we have the Kiddush up.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzah banu v'shabbat kodsho v'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh bereishit ki hu yom tefila lemikra'ei kodesh zecher letzilat Mitzrayim ki banu boharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim ve'shabbat kodshecha ve'ahava uvratzon hinchalkanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashavat. Chaim. Shabbat shalom. Feel free to come up.
I want to hang on 1 second. Hold on.
Hold on.
Because you should see the pretty fellow that Ellen brought.
Ellen. All right. All right, here comes the challah.
So the other thing we know about Parshat Noah is the end of that story. Noah sees as a promise from God the rainbow. So there's the beautiful, I don't know if it has chocolate chips. So we'll say the motzi over this, then we'll go outside and have our own egg, and you can eat at home. All right, you guys at home can unmute yourselves and say Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, Natalie.
Shabbat shalom.
Bye.
Margot.
Shabbat shalom, Michael.
Shabbat shalom,
Hi,
Natalie.
I like
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom, Claire.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.